my goodness, look at that. This is a very rare Thursday. Bring it in, David. It must be the NBA Finals.
Well, or the celebration that Elsa kind of skipped Clearwater. That was good.
Yay, we didn't have a hurricane. The non-hurricane.
We didn't get much rain. Yeah, we were good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have way too much to talk about. Here's my little opening preamble. Okay. I forget when it was, a couple of weeks ago, the Suns had won 8 playoff games in a row. And I said on the show, I think they're just going to win the title because you just don't see that. They are currently in a run where they've won 14 out of 16 games, even though Chris Paul was gone for 2 of those games. Big picture, a lot is going right for these Suns. On top of that, in game 1, the Bucks had 3 of the most volatile things in the sport go their way. Number 1, Giannis returned from a big knee injury and played very well. Number 2, unlike a lot of their playoff games, they shot very well from 3, 44%. They made 16. They also got the Suns to shoot poorly from 3, just 32%. Despite all that, the Bucks spent the entire second half, or almost all of the second half, down double digits, 538 and winning the finals at the Suns' odds at almost 80%. It looks, in some views, like the Suns are just on a cakewalk here. But you and I talk all the time. I'm listening. I'm hearing your tone. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you see a little more potential in the Bucks than most of us. And maybe we could spend a little time as you did predict that if Giannis was healthy, the Bucks would win. Before that, you wrote that this Giannis, the one that attacks the rim all the time, could win a title. Talk us through it. Why are you a little sunnier on the Bucks prospects than this little back of envelope analysis I just explained?
So there's a lot here, right? I mostly agree with what you wrote and what you just said. I thought Giannis played, you said very well, and you're not an idiot for saying that, but I would argue that he played good. His numbers are amazing considering he had 20 and whatever in 35 minutes, but he's really just straight line man right now. Not a lot of side-to-side stuff with him. Really couldn't score on one, which is a gigantic problem, by the way, if that doesn't change. Then I do think the Suns would definitely, cruise. They did shoot really well from 3, Milwaukee did, and did not shoot well from 2, and they normally do. They're bullies in the paint, and they were not bullies in the game. And I thought they had lots of looks. I thought Phoenix played very well, not their best. Phoenix can play better. They can certainly shoot better. I thought Milwaukee didn't play so well. I felt like Milwaukee woke up. This is just a metaphor in a sense, or just an analogy. Milwaukee woke up yesterday morning and thought, oh man, we're down 0-1 in the finals. Like, when did that happen? It was such a whirlwind between finishing off Atlanta, flying to Milwaukee to get their stuff, flying to Phoenix. All of a sudden you're playing, and boom, you're down 0-1. Like, they didn't get time to really get their bearings, whereas Phoenix, in a sense, was licking their chops, right? And deservedly so. They earned that with their 6-game win over the Clippers. And the way the schedule worked. Had Milwaukee an extra day of rest, I think would have helped. And so I guess a big picture, Henry, Milwaukee could play much better. Not shoot from 3 much better, play much better. And if you've watched Phoenix this whole postseason, they're very capable of not playing very well. They're capable of shooting threes well, but not playing well, just like Milwaukee did in game 1. So if you told me that Chris Paul would be this Chris Paul every single game, I think Phoenix has a way better chance to win. I don't know that he will. We've not seen him play like this every game. He's done 2 in a row now. Impressive. And so, yeah, I know we'll get into details, but I think Milwaukee can play much better. I also think that there was a resolve that the Bucks have built. They did lose game 1 and 2 to Brooklyn. And then, of course, Brooklyn has some injuries. They did lose game 1 to Atlanta and then won 4 of the next 5. Like, I didn't see any panic in them, and nor should there be. I also let Phoenix do a good job of handling their business and not acting like they won the championship already. That's encouraging too. But yeah, I think tonight's going to be a great game.
All right, so you are coaching the Bucks. You got the whiteboard. Like, what's the plan for game 2?
It's a long one. So the most important thing on both sides of the court would be to settle down. They played like puppy dogs. They got the ball inside and quickly shot the ball. instead of landing and faking and maybe pass faking and pivoting and when they should have. And they just kind of played rushed on offense. And that's why they shot so poorly in what I thought were good shots around the rim. And then defensively, just like your puppy dog wants to keep jumping on you, well, they kept jumping on the Suns. Devin Booker got 4 free throws early. I thought both calls were bad calls, but I thought Devin initiated the contact. But you tend to call that for the benefit of the offense if the defense isn't really set, and they weren't. And so the Bucks are great at not fouling, one of the best in the league. The problem with Phoenix is they're the best free throw shooting team of all time in the postseason. They're the best so far. And they went 25 of 26 in game 1. So it really is poisonous. Whereas Phoenix can foul Giannis a little bit more than they probably should, because who knows if they'll make it. Phoenix is going to make it. So settle down, guys. That's the first thing. Don't go for their fakes. Good, strong contest, hand in the air. That's it. Don't be jumping around. Offensively, settle in. Use your fakes on offense. Explode up when you're supposed to. Use fakes and pivots when you're supposed to do that. I think we'll see better. We saw Milwaukee in a couple games against Atlanta, which is not Phoenix, I grant you. Really, really looked like varsity versus JV inside. And with the exception of Ayton and Crowder's strength, they can do the same thing to Phoenix. Saric is out now for the rest of the series. They're probably their best interior defender, certainly their best off the bench, is second best overall, if you want to call Ayton the best. So I think Milwaukee I think we'll see a concerted effort by Milwaukee to pound the ball inside, not just posting up, but moving, cutting, slipping screens, attacking off the dribble. That'll be the first thing. And then they'll finish more shots. And I'll let you talk a little bit here, Henry, but let me just say this too. Like, you can't let Chris Paul be so comfortable. You know, you've got to have a complex or comprehensive plan to attack him more defensively and make him work. It doesn't mean score on him. Make him work. Don't let him just hide on PJ Tucker. Make him work. You can do that. There's ways they can run their screens to get Chris involved in the action, and then make him uncomfortable offensively. They acted as if you closed him out too aggressively, he would zoom by you and dunk. I'm sorry, he's not going to do that. Devin Booker might. You still have to do that with Devin Booker too. You can't give these guys the mid-range, which we'll talk about the mid-range more later. I call it the second box, because they'll kill you. They're murderers there. But you have to make Paul get to the rim and finish over long arms at tough angles. And I think you'll see they did better. Remember, Trae Young in game 2, Devin or someone could look it up. He had at least 8 turnovers game 2. That was a direct result, I thought, of Milwaukee lifting up their defense when they did drop and getting into Trae's face a little bit. And he was caught unawares. I don't think Chris Paul will be caught unawares. So he's not going to have 8 turnovers, that's for sure. He's not going to have 8 turnovers in this series, maybe. But make him drive to the rim, get your long arms up to. That's at least, I have a lot more I could say, but that's the beginning part, is settle down on offensive defense and get Chris Paul comfortable.
Well, something weird happened with fouling too, right? There were 5 minutes left in the game or so, and the Bucks had made 2 points from the free throw line total. They ended up, I think, with 7 or 8. But what was the deal with that?
So it was 2 things. It was Milwaukee being jumpy on defense, and Devin Booker being brilliant, attacking them and getting into them, getting their bodies. On the other side, Giannis, and this goes to what I was saying before about Giannis, I don't think he's healthy. He's healthier than maybe we worried that he might not be. He wasn't able to maneuver around anyone except for Ayton one time, where he just kind of bullied over Ayton, and Ayton fell back and Giannis dunked it. Bridges and Crowder, it was like an offensive lineman keeping a defensive tackle away from the quarterback. And the referees allowed it. And I said it on our show after game 1, but also was going to be talking about this. There was an inequity in free throws, whether deserved or not is irrelevant. The coaches are going to talk about it. And Coach Bud did yesterday. And so I think you're going to see, if Giannis, with a day of rest and not having to travel on an airplane, which is not good for your knee, I think you're going to see him more agile to maneuver, create angles around guys. And when you do that and then they hit you, the refs tend to call those fouls more. Now, that's not great for Giannis and the Bucks because he's not a good free throw shooter, but it does put guys in foul trouble a little bit. And other people will get fouled and are better free throw shooters than Giannis when now they're in the bonus earlier. So that it'll make an impact there. And then I think the Bucks can easily not foul the Suns as much as they did. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I think they can cut that almost in half. So when they take 26 and come to 13 free throws, that would be a goal I would have, is 13 to 15 free throws in game 2, and then I'll make it tougher.
I'll tell you one thing, that an underappreciated thing I learned at the Sloan conference is getting people in foul trouble has some benefit in getting them out of the game and a huge benefit in having them play not as productively. Like your guy on the court with 5 fouls just doesn't defend the rim the same way, right? And this is like Giannis driving and getting an extra couple of fouls on interior defenders is huge, just because his future drives will be less contested.
Right. So it's not just 5. What you're saying is right. It's the third in the first, or the third in the early second, or the fourth in the early third quarter, right? These are all exactly, I love what you wrote, how you said it. Like, these are all things in players' minds. Like, oh man, I just can't compete as hard as I could if I didn't have this foul issue. And that gives the advantage to the offense.
Oh, you'll see it. Like heaven forbid, like Devin Booker has 2 early fouls, and then is the guy back on the break and skies to, pretend to protect the rim. You'll see people being like, Devin, like, be smart, right? What they're saying is don't play D, right? Which is good for the offense. That's just how it goes.
For sure. And so on one thing on the Suns too, I wrote about this last week. If you remember, they had that 3-game stretch against the Clippers where the only game they won of 3, they won 84-80 in the game that Jet Van Gundy called a rock fight. Well, Phoenix was throwing rocks for 3 games in a row. They lost 2 of them. The Clippers are just not as good as the Bucks defensively. They're just not. So can Milwaukee upgrade their defense and not foul? Yes. So then you go to this question, which to me is the whole thing on the Phoenix side. When the Spurs whipped the Heat in game 1, we all thought the Heat were going to be fine against the Miami Heat. And then they won game 2 in San Antonio. This was LeBron's last year in Miami. And then when game 3 happened and the Spurs wiped the court in the Heat, I said on our True TV on the court show, like, I want to say Levitard, I think you did, because you like him better than me, you did Levitard first, and then I came on with Jay Adonde afterwards.
Much prefer Levitard, for sure. Yeah.
And I said, I think the series is over. I think the Spurs have found something that the Heat can't catch up to. And I think they'll be able to do it enough times, 2 more games in 4, where they're going to be champs. So now in Phoenix's case, can they play like they did in game 1, which is they played really well, whether they shoot from 3 or not is a separate story. Then Milwaukee will be in trouble. But Phoenix in the past has not always played that well. But if they can be like the Spurs and really just find another level, yeah, they'll be champions. And we'll see. Tonight isn't over, but it'll be helpful if they go up 2-0, that's for sure.
It always is. That is definitely a helper.
Helpful.
All right, I like this. You have dangled the idea that Milwaukee should basically go big to see if they can draw some Frank Kaminsky into the mix. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so Sarge being out means Kaminsky has to play if Phoenix decides to go big. Otherwise, you're playing guys like Crowder and Bridges at the 5. They're not 5s. And so Brook Lopez, you remember one game in Atlanta Pacific, he scored 30-some-odd points.
Yeah. He
just destroyed them inside. Bobby Portis had some excellent games. Giannis is a very tall man. We forget that sometimes. He's 7 feet tall, right? Middleton's a big 6'7" and long. They can pulverize you on the glass and in the paint. And if they can have success against Phoenix, or what we were saying before, where Phoenix is fouling because they're just being beat up, or they're just giving up second and third shots to kick out threes and layups, Monty Williams may have to say, hey, we got to get more size. And that's good for Milwaukee. It's good for Milwaukee because it means they forced them to do that anyway. And Kaminsky's a decent offensive player, but nothing like Sarge on defense. And that's an advantage to Milwaukee. They have to earn that. They have to outplay Phoenix to get them to try them to go big. Now, Phoenix may not do it. They might say, you know what, we're just going to stick with going small. But there's a tax to not just in the game getting beat up, but the overall anaerobic tax, the whole series of, remember, Phoenix just played a small team. Now, the Clippers are a big, small team, right? Reggie Jackson has a 7'1" wingspan, and he's their point guard. The Bucks are a big, big team. And that can wear you down some. But again, Milwaukee has to earn that, and we'll see if they do.
Interesting little thing that I learned from you, David, was like playing fast in a way is easier and takes less energy because it keeps you from having to wrestle, right? Like it's very taxing to just stand in the paint and shove huge men around. That's a thing that could come into play if they try this. Like if Jay Crowder would be wrestling somebody bigger than Jay Crowder.
Brooke Lopez. When they go small, he's a 5 sometimes. Yeah. So watch Phoenix play. You will not get the impression they're trying to go slow. And Milwaukee likes to. Did Milwaukee not lead the league this year in pace?
Close, anyway. Yeah.
I mean, they like to play fast. Phoenix likes to play fast, but in this series, Phoenix really wants to play fast. Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee may have number one in the pace, but they like to go. I mean, Giannis, they're the best fast break team in basketball, the Bucks, because of Giannis. So, but Phoenix does not want to play half-court bully ball with them, for sure. Especially now they're short of big, right? Milwaukee's short of guard. Yeah. The DiVincenzo injury is a big deal. This guy's a 2-year starter. He started every game for 2 years. And, guess what? They don't have someone to replace him. Like, he's very good. He's not great. He's very good. And what's the little kid's name? I just went blank on his name. From Michigan State, the shooter. Bryn Forbes. I say little kid. He's probably my size.
I think he's like
that's little. He's my size. That's little in the NBA. I love Bryn Forbes, but he took the worst shot. There's memes out there of his bad shot where even his own team was like shaking their head because they ran him off the line. All he can do is shoot the 3, and that's it. He's great at it. He can't really guard, and he can't really attack the rim. He can shoot. DiVincenzo can guard, he can drive, and he can shoot. He's just a much better all-around player. So Pat Connaughton, more limited than DiVincenzo. And they both have to play more because Jonte's out. So that's the Phoenix, made some hay there. But Henry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go. I'm going to make a point you made.
I was just going to say the quintessential Bucks play to me is like Giannis drives, defense collapses, there's a wall. There's just, Giannis is in like some kind of war, and then he pops out the most. So here's Pat Connaughton, makes the catch, and then it's like, like sometimes he shoots it. He's not the worst shooter, but he kind of wants to drive it. But when he drives it, he's right back in the same war that Giannis was in. He's not Giannis. And like, I just feel like this is the Bucks offense without DiVincenzo, right? It's just like Connaughton's always out there. He's a good defender. And this isn't quite a killer moment for them. There isn't quite the most efficient offense in the NBA that's developing from that.
Right. Giannis has gotten so much better, even in his postseason, at making early passes. The challenge with the Bucks is getting that first domino to drop, right? Getting that second defender to come, and now you're chasing, and now you can shoot the 3 when you make the swing pass, or you can attack the rim, which they like to do. But because Giannis wasn't able to maneuver around people, and they just body blocked him away legally in this game, they just didn't really ever get that court into a 4-on-3. The whole point of offensive basketball is to get a dunk or a 3. How do you do it? You play 5-on-4, 4-on-3, 3-on-2, 2-on-1, 1-on-0. You always have a man advantage. You can't do it when Giannis is trying to back down his offensive lineman, and he can't do it. And so right now, or last night, Bud has come up with some wrinkles to their pick and roll offense, some other things. They ran some other things to get a good space to maybe draw some help, and he's been willing to make a pass. Remember, Giannis wasn't always willing to make a pass in this postseason. He was forcing stuff against actions that demanded a pass because he thought he was Giannis and I had to do it. This is something this is an ego issue a lot of our players have. This is going back to Steph Curry in game 1, 2, and mostly game 3 against the Cavs in the first ever series against LeBron, where they were kind of doubling or blitzing or hard hedging and Curry. And instead of just making a simple pass to the roller, he would try to make a play and was causing problems for his team. And when he finally realized that I just got to make the right play, that's when I called you and said this series is over, even though the Warriors were down 2-1. So Giannis has learned that impressively. Like, I just got to make a good basketball play. And he is. Now he's just got to get a second guy to come to do it.
Pretty much forever, for his entire career, Jrue Holiday's been good at everything. And his teams the plus minus numbers have been ridiculous. He's almost the poster child of how you're supposed to play basketball. And his defense is still like that, but it hasn't quite. His offense in the playoffs has been screwy. Like, what's the deal?
Oh boy, if I knew that, right? I've written this and I've said this. he's out of his element, Henry. He's not played great in this postseason. He's had great games, which because he was so assertive, but I thought that he left stuff on the table. I don't think we've seen a Drew Holiday game. Like we can tag a lot of these games as, you know, the Jokic game and this, you know, Giannis. I don't think we've had a Drew Holiday game, and I think they need one. I think we've had a Chris Middleton game. We've had a Booker game. We've had a Paul game. We've had an Ayton game. We've had a Giannis game. We had a Lopez game. The Bucks need a Holiday game where he just makes, you know, 10 to 15 shots from the field and 4 or 6 from 3 and 9 assists, which he had last game, and 2 turnovers and a dominant defensive effort. I watched his post-game press conference. I went back and watched it. And he admitted, he said, I didn't shoot well. I think there's more to it than that. He went 4 or 14 from the field, I think. Had he go 7 or 14, I don't think he would have said he played great. He didn't play great. I also think he's a big key for them defensively. He can just guard Chris Paul, and if Booker goes off, he goes off. But if the Bucks can keep it tight, Chris Paul worn out down the stretch is a good thing for the Bucks because he's such an incredible, as we've written about for 10 years, he's such an incredible fourth quarter player. He just doesn't ever turn the ball over. And so they've got to find ways to make Paul miserable, and Drew is good at that. And then another thing we could talk about, Henry, is the way they defend ball screens. So I'm sorry, this is going to sound too in the weeds or just maybe stupid, but there's something we call a switch and peel. So what happens is if you just automatically switch a ball screen, anyone can see it. So let's say Chris Paul uses a screen where now Bobby Portis has guarded him. We all saw what happened in one play anyway. He made Portis look pretty silly. That happens to anyone. But what you can do is instead of the early switch, you can kind of show, and there's a little bit of room now for Paul to operate. He doesn't really want to shoot the 3 off the dribble. He wants to drive a little bit and let the guard kind of fight over a little bit. And then if he doesn't get over in time, then Portis would commit to switching, and the guard then peels to his man. It's just a delayed switch. I think you'll see more of that in this tonight. And just to keep him guessing, they might do it based on personnel. They might do it based on one quarter. Let's just switch and peel, whatever. I just think they're going to try to mix things up. You've got to get in Chris Paul's head. Good luck with that. But that's what you got to try to do. Otherwise, he's a surgeon out there, and he's carving them up.
I do remember when you called me and said the series was over and the Warriors would win, even though they were down 2-1. I was confused, and I need you to explain it to me. I remember you saying it was like a hunter. Like when a hunter's in the woods and like figures out like what the tracks are, like, you know, figures out like what are the cues to find the prey or whatever. In Steph's case, he had sorted out what to look for. I feel like this is the thing I hear you saying, like Drew, I think has a lot of skill, but doesn't have a read on exactly what he's looking for against this defense. And similarly, Chris Paul does, and so you want to change the forest, as it were, make it harder for the hunter to see what he's hunting.
So you're a smart man. Yes. So that's exactly right, Henry. If you said to me, what is the difference between Devin Booker and Chris Paul? I know you want to talk about Devin Booker, so this is the intro to that.
Sure. I'm not stupid.
So Booker and Paul, they know exactly what the script. They have written it out, they've tried it, and it's tested, and it works. And they're unshakable so far. I don't think Drew Holiday, and this goes back to the last series, even though he had a couple of really good games when Giannis was out, I don't think he has a great plan yet. I don't think he really knows, when do I play bully ball? When do I try to attack and score up one leg in my strong downhill drives? When do I shoot? Maybe the plan's somewhat fleshed out. He knows when to shoot the 3. I don't remember him passing up many 3s, but I don't think he has an overall plan of being an effective scorer within their offense. Yeah. And I think that indecision shows in his inefficiency as a scorer. He's got to tighten up that plan. Now, once he does, the Suns can make some adjustments. The reason why I felt confident that the Warriors were going to win that series it had nothing to do with the Cavaliers. It wasn't like Steph Curry hadn't seen blitzes before.
Right.
He just had never seen him in the NBA Finals before. He had never made the NBA Finals before, and he was the MVP for the first time. And he thought, "Oh, I gotta be the hero. I'm the MVP. It's the NBA Finals. So once he realized, well, I just want to win the game. And so the Cavs had nothing else to try that Curry hadn't seen before. And that's why maybe arrogantly felt like this series is over. In fact, what I exactly said to you is it'll be a blowout in game 3 because I don't think the Cavaliers realized that Curry solved them. And then I think it'll be a good series, but the Warriors are going to probably I didn't necessarily say they'll sweep them here. I said they'll win the series, they'll probably win in 6, whatever. And so it's different though. This is their Suns have bullets still to fire. The Bucks make some adjustments and figure stuff out. I'm not telling you if Milwaukee wins tonight, I'm not telling you now they're going to win game 3 in the series. There's plenty of bullets to fire on both sides. That series I thought was a mismatch. And David Blatt brilliantly came up with something that worked only because Curry was a little too thinking I've got to score myself. I think these teams have a tougher time figuring each other out.
I think if there's a way to ask me to join us by video, it's by talking shit about Jrue Holiday in the chat. So maybe Gerard can join us now. Gerard, are you available at this early juncture? You actually raised a fascinating point. I'm going to tell you why I'm asking this. So we were talking about, seeing the path through the woods, as it were, in this analogy. And Gerard wisely said, but isn't knowing a skill this year 11 or 12 in the league for Holiday. Go on.
Hello, guys. This is not anti-Jrue Holiday. Like, I like Jrue Holiday. I think that there is this push, I think, like, Jrue Holiday's so underrated. I'm like, no, I think Jrue Holiday is exactly properly rated. He's a very good player. Borderline all-star. I think if you play in the Eastern Conference and not the West, he probably has more all-star appearances because it's just harder to make it out there. But knowing how to do that, what Chris Paul does is what makes Chris Paul, right? Like, Jrue not knowing how to do this isn't a character flaw on him. It's just that he don't know how to do that. That doesn't mean he's not good. He's just not Chris Paul. Like, that's okay.
So I don't disagree, but I guess I feel like I think the most precious skills in the NBA are the ones that can help you win when you're not the star. Like, a lot of the best players in the league are wannabe stars. We can talk about Kyle Kuzma, who said he can score 25 in the league, but he can't next to LeBron. He will never get to, right? He doesn't have the ball. They don't need that from him. His skills are worthless there, right? So, like, the NBA's full of guys like, if I got to, like, well, you don't get to, like, because you play with Giannis. Like, you don't get to. So this is where, like, Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton are, like, very super valuable, right?
Yes.
They're incredibly valuable defenders, and the particular things they can do on offense are quick with the ball, right? So he's not Kevin Durant. He's never going to be Kevin Durant. He's not supposed to be Kevin Durant. But, like, Chris Middleton's actually, to me, the textbook example of, like, maybe I think I could use as an analogy. To me, Jrue Holiday is the Chris Middleton of guards, right? Like, he's excellent on the plus minus. He's great on D, and he has a much more limited game than an absolute superstar. But Chris Middleton is an example that, like, if he can be at the top 10% of his abilities, wizardry. You're never going to lose. Yeah. The Bucks almost never lose when Chris Middleton is at his best on offense, right? And I'm like, I guess it's like, how do you nudge Jrue into that category of his skill, right? How do you put him in that situation?
Draw and I talked about this on one of our Friday shows before it was Hawks Knicks, where we said, I don't know if Trae Young's going to get in the playoffs. Let's see. Right? This is a new thing for Trae. Maybe he'll be great. We didn't know. I wasn't predicting. I picked the Hawks to win the series, not because I thought Trae Young would definitely be great. I hoped. I thought it was possible. Well, Jrue Holiday's never been this far. And because I've seen it before in the other playoff series where I thought it took a while for him to come around, like his 2 best games were the last 2 in the last series against Atlanta. Again, Giannis was out. This is new territory for him. I'm not ready to tell you. I've coached Jrue. Like, I know what kind of kid he is. He's as good a character as you're going to have. I actually think he's always been able to be better. I always think he's left a little something on the table because it doesn't matter to him the way it does, for example, with Devin Booker, who is a motherfucker. This is where we're seeing a superstar not emerge because he's always existed. But
Randy,
what is happening in the chat? I'm sorry I said that.
We're watching a superstar now at a different level because of the postseason. Devin Booker is very Kobe minded.
So let me really put this to you, David. Let's set it up. So I asked David in the little document that we made. Okay. Devin Booker can really score because ... And then I challenged you to say, look, like, of course he can shoot. He's long. He has a good handle. But like, there's something more, right? There's talk to us through what is the magic of Devin Booker?
Did you read the article? I don't know where I read it from. It might have been Ramona's and ESPN. I don't remember. Where they told the story. You guys will love this if you didn't read it. They told the story of his workout with the Suns. The Suns do a workout, Henry. This is every team pretty much does this. Every high school team does it, where it's almost like, make it take it one-on-one. But if you win, well, the next you only have to make one basket. Then the next guy comes. If you lose, you're out. If you play defense, they score on you. You're out. You go back to the line.
This is knockout, right?
Yep, knockout.
It's kind of like knockout. Right.
Court,
so, and then you keep going around and around and see how many wins you get. You keep track of how many. Normally, we play like first 1 to 7 wins. Wins the tournament, whatever. I don't remember exactly, but it was like 18 in a row or some crazy number that he won. They realized, well, we got to get to some other drills here. And the Sun staff like, hey, let's try some. I was like, fuck that. He said this. This is the
got to stop me first.
Yeah, he's like, fuck that. We're not ending this drill if someone beats me. Well, I've coached some very, very special scorers. Henry knows Kevin Martin well. I asked Kevin one time, this guy averaged 20 a game over 6 seasons in the NBA. I said, how would you rate yourself as a one-on-one player? This was like, he was like 25 and scored 25 a game for the Kings. He said, I've never lost a one-on-one game in my life. And he said it as deadpan as you can be. So some guys just can fucking score. Devin Booker is one of those guys. So how? Mindset. And that means discipline. It's not just, I'm going to bully you. He's not Shaq. He knows exactly where he wants to go when you can't stop from getting there because he can counter it. He wants that mid-range, the second box jumper. He puts a beautiful arc on it. He gets a little fadeaway. He gets some elevation on his shot. And unless Giannis is guarding him, I don't think it may be Middleton, maybe, certainly not PJ Tucker. They can't contest it. They can't contest it well enough for him to miss often. The problem is if you really sell out to stop that from happening with help, he's a willing passer. He's not selfish at all, I don't think. Or if just one-on-one, you try to take that away, well, he'll do what we call a straight line drive right to the rim. He's very athletic. He's very crafty. That's a fucking bitch to guard right there. He can do it all, right? And this is where Jrue Holiday isn't. Jrue Holiday could have a sledgehammer and he wouldn't use it. He would feather dust sometimes. Devin Booker's fucking sledgehammering. Boom, boom, boom. Do you give me the ball, Chris? I'm going to work. If you sell me out with a second guy, I'm happy to pass. That's what the best scorers do. They don't ever take a play off, ever. They want to score every time. They're greedy about it. It's a word I love to use with players. You don't be greedy in life, certainly not as a spouse or a dad or a friend. On the basketball court, be greedy when it's time to eat everything you can. But there's a saying in the desert, you walk past an egg in the desert, you eat the egg and its shell. Leave nothing for someone else. Because that guy may eat the next bit of food and that's why you starve. Devin Booker's in the desert. He's eating every fucking egg and shell out there right now. He's killing it. I
love that. That's beautiful. I think that the coach, the idea about him being sort of, well, it's not just about him. All right, 4 guys around me, I'm going to shoot it. What I like about him is he's just smart with how he plays basketball. Yeah, he's going to score, but he makes the right basketball play too, right? And he's like, he's not an elite playmaker, but he's a very good passer. And willing is the number one thing. Back to your point about Jrue, though, Henry, like maybe it's a thing with fit on Milwaukee, right? Like, because to Coach's point, Giannis is off the floor. Oh, these guys look so much better, right? So what is it about the balance between Giannis has got to get his and eat? We know that because there's a pecking order, right? Okay, but you got to allow enough for Jrue to eat too and for Chris to eat too, right? Like, so maybe that's a internal thing with figuring out how to optimize them all their best. And to be fair, it's only year 1 with them, right? So with all 3 of them. So maybe it's a thing that they're learning in progress. How do I get myself to be the best version I can be with these other 2 guys?
I'm a fan of the Portland Trailblazers, and a few years ago, Jrue Holiday took my entire team and put them on a skewer and like slow roasted them. And it was just the most devastating. Like whatever anybody says Jrue Holiday can't do, I'm like, yes, he can. Like, yes, he can. Like,
now we know your Jrue Holiday love. You saw him torture your team. That's what got it. You got it.
I'm pretty sure I was the only ESPN guy to pick the Pelicans to win that series, which is,
oh my God.
We have a lot of smart people when we were working there. I was not excited to see, like, no one else thinks, like, how stupid am I? And it wasn't because of Drew, it's because of AD more than anything. But yeah,
no, it was because of Drew. Like,
Drew was great.
Like in my house, I was like, "What? Drew Holiday is just, Drew Holiday ate my soul." Like, it was yeah.
Drew has got to really, like, he needs some spirit in him. He needs to people need to breathe some spirit into him. And
is that on Giannis or on Bud, Coach?
Oh, that's a great question, Gerard. I think it's both for sure. It's Giannis not acting like, no, give me the ball. Like, that's a killer. And I don't think this, when you talk about Booker, that's what's great about Phoenix, is I never get that impression that anyone is worried about where the ball's going, right? I was watching, this is going to sound maybe a little amateurish, but I promise you it's not. I was watching the Lightning clinch their Stanley Cup last night. And I always cry when teams win championships. I don't care what sport it is. I always cry. I don't care if it's women's ping pong, cry my eyes out. I know what it takes to be a champion. It's really freaking hard. But these are the best hockey players in the world. And just hearing them talk about trust the way they do, I did keep thinking about Phoenix. Like, I think Chris Paul is at a place in his life. You see the way he treats Ayton? Mm-hmm. Early in the season, it wasn't that way. He was much harder on him. And I feel like he really thinks he's DeAndre's big brother. And what that must mean to Ayton when Chris Paul is saying, hey, go do your thing, right? James Worthy, I've said this before on our show, James Worthy is Big Game James. But when Big Game James was first told by Magic, I'm coming to you, James, James' response was, me? I heard James Worthy tell the story. It was a very good story. It's like, you're coming to me? I've got Kareem and Magic, but they're coming to me? Well, I must be pretty good. So to your question, Gerard, that's what Giannis has to say to Drew. Hey, when you get Paul on you, bully him, or Booker even more, bully him. Don't worry about me. We'll crash the glass. If my guy helps, pass the ball. But we can't win if you take less than 20 shots. That's what they need to tell him. Be that aggressive. We'll play around you. And if Phoenix goes small, well, then go bigger and try to bully him up on the glass. Phoenix really is operating it. To Henry's point of winning 14 of 16, all those teams were injured, but you don't apologize for wins. Teams have lost other injured teams before, right? I mean, the Jazz lost and Kawhi didn't play. Phoenix is not beating themselves. You've got to go beat them. And to do that, Drew's got to do much more.
We started down a road of you like the Bucks' chances maybe a little more than like the 538 odds. What are the Bucks' chances, you think, of winning these finals?
What I think the chance of winning this finals?
Yeah.
I still give them a 40% chance. Yeah. I don't think how often are we overreacting to one game? Especially when a team's already overcome a 2-loss deficit, a 1-loss and 2-loss. And what world do we live, guys, where we can just assume Phoenix won't get hurt anymore? What world is that? They've already lost a key rotation player. How do we know, right? You've got to, it's cliche. You've got to just keep busting your ass, hope for the best. I mean, they look healthy, but so did Sarge before the game, and now he's out for a year. Like, shit happens, man.
Yeah.
I wonder, everyone, I feel like I heard a lot of talk about, Giannis looked great in game one, and everyone kind of just makes this assumption like, he'll just get stronger as the playoffs, as the series goes on. I go, how do you make that? Like, he's got a high percentage knee. Like, playing playoff basketball is not going to make his knee better. Like, me personally, I don't get it, and I don't see it. But everyone assumes, once he gets more comfortable with the knee, he'll be fine. I go, that's not how I think this works. But what do I know? I'm not a scientist or a doctor.
I wish for him that they had the 2 games off before game 2, right? It'd be so much better if he had a little more.
That's why I would have sat him game 1. I feel very confident that the right play was to sit him game 1. Then even if he's got extra rest, and then after tonight he gets 2 more days before he plays Sunday night. Yeah. That's to me, that was the right play. Yeah, I understand why they didn't. I get it.
Well, they lost anyway. Every time you lose, you should have set your starter. Like, that's just
right. But I said it before the game, right?
It's not fair. You can't predict it, but yeah. Like,
before the game, I said it. And he's allowed to have his own opinion. I mean, in this age of player empowerment, if the player wants to play, and
they're gonna play
around just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a real trust, right? Real trust to say, Giannis, we're way better off winning this series if you don't play till Thursday night.
He comes up very high in the obsession ratings, right? When we talk about like who's willing to sit, who's willing to rest, who's willing to, not be the best at everything. Like Giannis is, like I thought he'd play in game one because I wasn't sure they could stop him, right? Like I just think he's that kind of guy, which is exactly why he's so good, and it's exactly why he might finish the series, to Gerard's point, hobbling around because he's overworked his knee. Because I don't think he's a big on like strategic rest kind of guy.
Well, that's his brand, Henry. He got to where he is by outworking everybody. That's who I am. I'm the hardworking, outwork everyone guy. And it's like, yes, on the one hand, that's your gift, but it's also your curse as it relates to this particular thing. But then it's also, how are you going to tell somebody you might never go to the NBA Finals ever again in your career? That's a possibility. How are you going to tell them, no, you're not playing? Like, I get it.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
This is the trick. Like that's everybody's brand in the NBA, right? Like everybody's 1 in a million, everybody is the hardest working, but that doesn't mean that here now with this set of challenges and this hormonal profile and this injury that your best thing is to work more, right? Like, this is the curse of elite athletes, is the exact road that you took to get to the NBA is not necessarily the same road you should take from game one to game two, right? Like it's a little bit of a more subtle game than that. That's hard. It's hard. Here's a little thing I just looked up. Chris Paul field goal attempts through these playoffs by game. 8, 5, 8, 15, 9, 12, 14, 10, 16, 19. Highest number, 19. Then he has his 8 days off, and then he's played 5 games since then. And 19, 22, 19, 24, 19. So basically, like what was his ceiling is now his floor, and he's taking 20-ish shots every game. It's fun to watch and maybe impossible to guard. I don't know. Is this a new formula for him?
I wrote that it was. I thought that. I told you. I imagined a phone call from LeBron or Carmelo or one of his boys saying, just what you said, Henry. Chris knows he may not be going back, and he might even play for Phoenix next year. Don't lose being the quarterback. Right, you've got to be the scorer that you can be. Quite frankly, I think Chris Paul could have done this his whole career. And the reason, now I'll say if he was, he may have already retired, right? Because it's harder to do all the scoring than the passing and quarterbacking. But I mean, they're down to 6 games maximum left. He had that long rest. Yeah, go sell out. Make them. That's why I think that Milwaukee can really. If he's going to be more assertive, then you got to take away the mid-range game and make him finish at the rim. I'll tell you this. If he's blowing by Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis and Giannis and Middleton tonight at the rim and scoring, the Bucks are toast minus an injury. Yeah. But if he's not, and this is the thing that, if you look at Thorpe's rules of defense that I have in my Google Doc, number one is don't foul. Most, at the highest levels, they still have trouble missing. They still have trouble making, they call them bunnies. Let me tell you something. It's a bunny when there's no one between you and the rim and you're in the NBA. It ain't a bunny when there's a hulking Brook Lopez. Giannis is long arm. That is not a bunny. That's fucking hard to make, especially, and this is where the nuance of the game, Chris Paul is a genius at angles and where to attack. Most of these guys are that are high-level scorers. The defense forces them a degree or two off, and everything changes. You can track this, I'm sure, with data with Second Spectrum. Against the 7-foot arm, the angle that you got to take, you just don't make as many. Don't foul him. Make him take those shots. If he makes those consistently, well, then the Bucks are toast. But let's see. This is what they're talking about right now. Make him. I'm telling you this. Bud is not saying, "Hey, just keep giving the mid range. He'll start missing." That's not happening. He'll miss more than he missed the other night, but he won't miss enough to lose the game. If they just let him keep doing it because he knows what he wants. That's his plan. You got to try to make him ad-lib, improv. You got to make Chris Paul do that if you're the Bucks.
This is where I feel the value of these like nimble big men like DeAndre Ayton and Clint Capella, right? Is when your little guard is ad-libbing with the big man, like there's always that little threat of like you don't want to go too far from the rim because then
a lot.
DeAndre Ayton's right there.
Yeah. Well, to that too, Gerard and I talked about this series some where Phoenix is super connected on both ends of the court, and they've been this way for a while. So if you I watched the game, a couple of times now. There's just a lot of plays where Milwaukee thought they had something, and help came. Yeah. And help came aggressively. There was one lob to Lopez, and who broke it up? Chris Paul. It was his job. He was guarding the guy in the right corner, at the left corner, facing the basket, and he came running over. And now Chris Paul is not afraid to hit somebody.
No.
and he went up there thinking, I'm getting the ball or the arm. But what's not going to happen is Brook Lopez catching the ball and dunking the ball. That's not going to happen. Well, the Suns did that a lot. They were really sharp. The Bucks need to add more decoy action or fake action, more fake passes. This is what I'd be teaching anyway. Get the Suns, because they're reacting so perfectly timed, throw off their coordination a little bit with these fakes, with these misdirections. And then all of a sudden, we might be the team that gets the free throw line more. It's part of the reason why the Bucks fouled more, is in part because the Suns operated so well in terms of their execution, and then in part because the Bucks were just too jumpy. Those little things. What series have we watched where the same thing happened all 4 times? Oh, I know what it was. It was Denver versus the Suns. But normally you don't see that. Normally it's not just one team not doing anything different. They lose every game. I think we'll see more variance, going forward.
Ooh, we don't like that word anymore, David. It's not a good word. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. ProPublica. This is Robert Federecci, Justin Elliott, Ellis Simani. Amazing work with cute little animations about the shenanigans of how sports owners save a ton on their taxes. I'm not an expert in this. I really couldn't recommend more that you go check it out. A couple of the examples they give. One is there's a stadium worker who works for the Clippers in Staples. There's LeBron James, who's the visiting team that night. And then there's Steve Ballmer. And of the 3 of them, do you want to guess who has the highest tax rate?
Either the worker or LeBron.
It's LeBron. And then second is the worker.
Of course, Ballmer's last.
Lowest tax rate by far is Ballmer. The Clippers are an interesting team for them to focus on because there have been some leaks, some audited financials from a Bank of America report and an ESPN report. And we basically know they've been making money as a team. And yet, because I'm paraphrasing this terribly, someone who knows more about it should explain it better. But basically, you can depreciate the contracts, the player contracts, which are assets for the team. They can depreciate, as can all of the assets of the team, basically, even like the franchise rights, things that will not go down in value, have never gone down in value, but you can depreciate them as if they were like rusting old equipment. Which when it was created was known to be trickery, because the guy who invented it bragged about the trick, but it actually works. It's acknowledged. So by this math, not only can Steve Ballmer avoid taxes on income from the Clippers, but he can actually reduce his tax bill for other income with this trick. Amazing.
They do the same thing.
Gilbert,
incredible.
Dan Gilbert has reduced his taxable income by about $443 million between 2005 and 2018 because of this tax record show. And then this is just for fun. ProPublica reached out to Dan Gilbert's lawyer, and he said, during the entire time after Mr. Gilbert's purchased the team, the Cavaliers has operated with an actual loss, negative cash flow, negative income, unrelated to any depreciation or amortization, and there have been no funds to distribute to Mr. Gilbert or any other owner. Without this depreciation, he says, there would be no capital investments made by owners or businesses, would be taxed on revenue without properly taking into account all costs necessary to generate that revenue. That would be antithetical to capitalism and fatal to the United States economy. We would not be here, you guys, if Dan Gilbert didn't get $443 million taken from schools and teachers and stuff. Without that, the United States would not exist.
It's just brilliant, man.
I'm just glad they set it up that way. That's good for us. I'm glad we got that win.
As always, it's always good for us, right? But that, that's like the highest level, right? Even if you bring it down to someone who owns an LLC or whatever, there are a million ways I can write and count things as depreciable assets, right? For the first 3 years of starting a corporation, I can file negative losses, even if I don't have negative losses. I'm just allowed to do that by the tax code. That's a huge advantage. And then I can change things around. Oh, contracts. That's an asset. Oh, well, you can do a million a million things to protect all of your wealth. And it is set up and designed that way. And that's what these dudes do. So it's like not shocking. It's just, it screws us ultimately in the end.
Well, I don't know. You sound a little bit like you're doing that.
Allegedly, Henry. We don't know who's listening to this. Don't be putting that out into the sphere here.
But you became the protagonist of that story at some point. All right, moving on.
Yes, please.
I love this kind of story. They come up every now and again. There's a guy out there who has the Twitter and Instagram handles at Devin Booker 31, who keeps getting mentioned in the media by all sorts of people. He is not Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. He is a professional basketball player who used to play AAU with Chris Middleton. He's a father of four in South Carolina. He's about to play professionally again this year. I think they said in Istanbul. And he's just like, people just don't look. And so Dan Wojcicki of the LA Times has this bunch of tweets with like, wrong Devin Booker, wrong Devin Booker. And then the real Devin Booker started dating a Kardashian, and like this poor guy started getting like a million more mentions. And he's like, I'm trying not to take advantage of the moment, but it's just like consistently tags and mentions, especially after the games that he does well. People just take the time out of your day just to go on the actual profile to see who you're tagging. He'll play this upcoming season in Istanbul. Middleton says he's the first guy I ever really saw dunk on someone. And he's like, I'm not sure if people are so confused. I have pictures on my profile on each Twitter and Instagram. Clearly, you can see my face. We look nothing alike. It happens a lot.
In Twitter. Wrong.
I know some media people listen to us. I want, and maybe Gerard or Henry will do it. You know that chase block that Giannis had, and everyone is talking, comparing it to LeBron's right against Iguodala in the NBA Finals, Game 7. I saw that in 1994 in a college game by a player who actually grew up 3 minutes where I live right now, named Andrew DeClerc. He made the NBA for 8 or 9 years, I think.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
Yeah. Yep. So he's from here. He played at the same school my son went for a few years. He played for the Gators when he was the power forward, and one of my players from high school was a starting center. And in the Final 8, I was at the game in Miami in the Final 8 against Boston College against Howard Isley, went to the Jazz or whatever. And I think he's going for a layup, and I'm depressed because I went to school in Florida, and the starting center was like my son. And the clerk trucked down the court and jumped and wiped it off the glass. And I'd never seen that before in my life. And at that point, I've been coaching, a good 10 years almost. I'm wondering who can we know is the first one to ever do it. It's such an amazing play because it's not just the effort to run and the effort to jump and the timing to block it, but also to make sure it's not a goaltend. And Andrew DeClerc didn't pin it; he swatted it clean. It was one of the strangest things to see it live. I've never seen it before. Did Russell do that before?
I was going to with Caleb. It's either Wilt or Russell because it had to be someone who was super athletic, and we know from what everyone said, Wilt was just like way more athletic than everybody else at that time. So it had to be one of those two guys had to do it.
I'd love to see that.
All those challenges you said, David, and I would add one more, which is, and it's it's hard to know the way the camera angle is. Like it's very hard to get a sense of like what LeBron can see or what Giannis can see, but like it's not obvious to me at the moment of takeoff that the landing is clear, right? Like you got to navigate laterally moving bodies and make sure because Giannis is not a bad knee. Like you don't want to land in some crazy way, right?
It's one of the most, in terms of athleticism, I would tell you, you're going to laugh when I tell you this. The famous Jordan go up right and back to the left, that is not so amazing. I can't jump like Jordan, and I was totally ambidextrous. So I would go right. I don't think I'm that high to go left. It's a nice play. In the NBA Finals, whatever Jordan did, better than anything I did in the pickup game. That block shot that Giannis and LeBron and DeClerc and Russell, it sounds like Russell did it daily from what you hear about his ability. That is a more incredible athletic play. And now on Giannis's case, the fact that he could do it is great. I did not see the same movement. I heard some other people talk about this on podcasts I've listened to. He was not active laterally the same as he normally is. We'll see and I don't know with that bruise whether it'll get better or not. We'll have to see. Rest is the secret for any Bruce. But he is the best defensive player in the series. And he was defensive player of the year. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
Yeah, he broke Rudy's streak. Yeah. They need that. They need that. I wonder, too, if they want to play him on Chris Paul a little bit.
So, David, what's the definition of this play? Like, what are the terms? Like, what would Wilt or Russell have to be doing on video for you to say that's it?
Oh, so you got to chase down from a good distance, number one, right? If blocking it when you're just a step or two off the line, I don't think so impressive. We've seen that plenty of times. Yeah. You got to look like you're almost out of the play. And remember, offensive players that are flying full speed, if they don't slow down on the finish and they go to dunk it, especially, you'll see it. Corey Brewer once almost broke his neck. He ran full speed, dunked it, but you have to grab on the rim to catch yourself, and you flip your legs up, literally, and his hand slipped off the rim, and he landed at the last second. He's almost like a cat. He didn't land on his head. It was super scary. We see this not just with Corey, other guys. So what I'm saying is you have to slow down someone you're coming at full speed offensively. The defensively doesn't have to do that, other than making sure you don't hit your head against the backboard. So you've got to chase from behind, and then you've got to block it on the release without goaltending. That to me is what it is. Yeah. You don't see it much.
I mean, and I'll be honest, when you go look at the old, like, I want no part of some fight about, like, Wilt or Russell, who I didn't even see. But it is very hard to find video of people being super athletic in the early days of the NBA. Yeah. Like, it's like full extension, full speed, like, that kind of stuff is much more common now.
It is, but were you guys George Gervin fans?
Iceman.
So, yeah.
I mean, sure. I wasn't allowed to see him play, but I've seen enough of his highlights.
I had a poster of him on my wall with Moses Malone and Paul Westphal and a few others, Dr. J. Just because this is what people like me do, I had to look 10 minutes yesterday with nothing. Guess what I did? I watched George Gervin's tape. And I had no idea how many dunks he had. Now, this is a highlight tape because he would rather finger roll. He was so beautiful, right? But no, he has some monster dunks. To Henry's point, the elite guys were the elite guys. Russell, and Wilt were as athletic as any guy we had here. They weren't as big and strong. They didn't lift weights. But players number 4, 5, 6, and 7, nowhere close. Pat Connaughton's an 8th guy, really. If you get down to it, for the Bucks, he might be as athletic as any guy we have in the league, right? And back then, he'd been a many-time All-Star. Many-time All-Star back then, yeah. Gary Harris, many-time All-Star in the 80s. Now he's worth a couple $1 million a year in the NBA, right?
I mean, like, Clyde Drexler was seen as a legit Jordan rival, like, could never really shoot, right? Like, couldn't dribble with 2 hands. Like, I just feel like they're like, he was just an incredible athlete. I mean, that's not fair. He was more than that. But still.
Denigrating a Portland Trailblazer. That's terrible, Henry.
Well, he went on to become a really bad Rockets broadcaster. All right.
You guys had one athlete in terms of straight line. Jerome Kersey was not a guy you wanted to give him a fast break launch because he was going to hammer dunk it on you. I remember those.
My mom calls him Jeromeo.
R.I.P. Jerome, right? Didn't he die recently?
Yeah.
No, terrible. Honestly, tons of deaths from that team. Like Kevin Duckworth.
Oh, really?
Yes. Remember Kevin Duckworth? Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, here we go. We got about 2 minutes left. We can either talk about Kyle Kuzma, or we can talk about David's mid-range.
We should do mid-range then, because I want to sound smart. So basically, it's a challenge. Go ahead.
In the document, it says
five. Great article.
What does it say? Pardon the professionalism here. Here we go. David wants to talk about this chart. Here we go. Look at this. Love these Owen Phillips F5 charts. Everyone should subscribe to the F5 on Substack. Okay, if you look at this little chart, here we go. Short. Actually, do you mind holding on that first chart? Okay, so look at the little chart, which shows the number of shots that are 3-pointers has gone way up. They have been taken from long mid-range, 16 foot and beyond. But this little band of 10 to 16 feet or 3 to 10 feet in particular has grown in this year's playoffs. This is what Dave is talking about, is when they're defending the 3-point line, people like Mike Conley and Chris Paul and who else? Trey Young
Durant.
are going to attack this short mid-range. He calls it the second box. Is that what we're seeing here?
I don't like to be in such an ambiguous terms. So we try to get a foot in the paint. And it might just be the tip of your foot. You're shooting a 16-footer, middle of the floor. Both sides are then open. It's a shot these guys can make almost like a layup, and they can manipulate the shot. They can fade away. They can put extra arc on it. We had a GIF in our last post, Henry, with Chris Paul's arc being super high. If they work on it, it's a great weapon. If they take away the rim and the three, then you got the second box jumper, and that's what everyone's working on these days.
And we're out of time. Gerard and Dave will be here tomorrow.
Tonight.
Oh,
and
we doing
after the game. Oh my God. So much.
Yes,
on
Clubhouse
tonight. Back here and bring it in tomorrow. Just live with us. We'll never leave you alone.
Yes.
Right,
no tropical storm. I'll be there. Bells on.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, David.